Hello and welcome. This is Nyangige Samuel Chacha, a student at Moi University, taking technology education, and specializing in electrical and electronics technology. Now, this is my experience on the virtual trip. To start with SCAD, let me talk a bit of SCAD because that was my assignment number one. SCAD is a computerized is a software that is installed. I can call it a software similar to artificial intelligence, which is a process that executes, reads, collects data, analyzes the data, and gives out the feedback. Now, SCAD as a software is installed in so many industries. In the food production industry, in the electrical production industry, in the automotive area, in the mechanical, and also in building in some way. It's installed in the softwares that are used, in the softwares of the computers that are used. I will take an example of electrical installations and processes that have been installed with the SCAD. SCAD has been installed in machines and computers that are used in electrical production, which helps in reading the temperatures so that it helps in regulating. Once the temperatures are too high or maybe they exceed the limit that is needed, the SCAD reads the instructions that have been regulated by the employees around and is able to give out alarms so that in case the temperatures are going beyond the limits that are needed, so that the employees can regulate and reduce the temperatures to the required standards. When I talk about any other processes that we were to learn about, I'll talk about the computerization in manufacturing. Computerizing manufacturing is a process that has been introduced in the early 80s, which has been helping so much in the production of power, in the production of other materials, and even in the food industry. We will go deep much into that when I talk about the production of motors and the electrical production of energy. Now, let me talk about the production of motors. Motors are some of the equipment that we use in our daily basis. They are not only in the electrical areas, they are also in mechanical areas such as vehicles. They are also installed in our daily uses such as aeroplanes and so on and so forth. Now, when we talk about the production of motors, this is a process that needs so much of energy and intelligence, because this is a process that must be done into perfection so that once a motor has been produced, it does not come out, then goes back to give out poor feedback. Motors are produced in accordance to their uses. We have motors are mostly produced in three phases, which helps in the production of power. So many of us were into the industries during the industrial attachment, and we at one point interacted with motors. A good example are people who are into the sugar production industries, and also those who maybe attended the production of metals and so on and so forth. These are places where we were directly interacting with motors during rewinding and maintenance of the motors, because these motors at times break down and they need to be maintained. With the guidance of an engineer who is qualified, we were able to interact with the machines, and the videos that we were watching were exactly the instructions we were getting at the industries, or the instructions given to the videos. Now, I want to also talk about electrical production. Electrical production, as we all know, electricity is becoming an essential need. It's becoming one of the basic needs actually, though it's not that basic, we can do without, but in the daily production of our daily meals, our daily processes, such as the movement of some electrical trains, the movement of the production of food, the production of maybe clothes, and so on. In the industries, electricity is becoming an essential need. When we talk about electrical production, we will look at so many processes. We can produce electricity by coal, we can produce by wind, by turning the windmills, we can produce by water, by turning the turbines, we can produce from the underground sources, which is called geothermal electricity production. We can also use natural resources such as uranium and other ways, but there are processes of production such as oil. For example, I'll take a good example of the KenGen in Kibwezi, an industry that is using petroleum to produce electricity and supply it to the Kenya Power industry so that it reaches the consumers. Now, electrical production has so many setbacks, but in the processes of this production of electricity, there are so many processes that are involved. One of them is SCAD. SCAD is involved in the softwares installed in the computers during the process of production. A good example is in the generation of electricity through the oil. Now, oil burns so fast and so furious. We need to burn it to a higher temperature so that we get the maximum power. When we also talk about computerization in electrical production, we will look at so many processes that are needed. Computerization in electrical production is done, and this helps in the supply, this helps in the production, this helps in the movement of electricity around and within the company. Now, electricity as a production process needs a lot of resources. Now, this in the early 70s, in the early 60s, a lot of energy and a lot of manpower was employed, which consumed a lot of resources, such as coal, such as manpower, and this was so costly. But due to computerization and improvement of equipment and production of electricity, we have been able, or the companies have been able to reduce on the cost, since manpower has been reduced and computerization done. Now, on my recommendation about the virtual trip, I'll talk about, I'd like to encourage, actually. So many universities have been spending a lot of money on taking students to field trips. These field trips are good for the students because they get to interact with the actual instruments. A good example is if one had to attend to a sugar company, maybe to look at a motor, but they have been interacting with the motors and they know what motors are. I would recommend any other university, not necessarily Moi University, but all the universities maybe worldwide, to use virtual trips, because we look at the actual things online. And nowadays, on the improvement of technology, I think the virtual trips are the best, actually. It reduces on the time spent, it reduces on dangers posed on the students. It also reduces the cost, because students don't have to incur a lot of money to attend the trips, and the time spent on watching videos very short. A video of 7 minutes cannot take you a whole day to understand. It will take you just about an hour or two. You will have gathered all the information needed and the knowledge necessary. Thank you.